Good morning. Can you hear me and see my shared screen? Is anyone able to unmute themselves?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I just wanted to check before I start. We weren't having technical problems. That's great.
I was talking while the speaker was off.
I think I put it on mute on entry just because we had a bit of background noise from somebody last week, because it's easy to forget. But yeah, just keep it to them so it's not distracting for people. Okay, we'll make a start. Thank you for joining me for today's session. As I say, just keep yourself on mute, but if you do want to ask a question or answer at any point, you can unmute yourself, that's fine. Okay, so today we're looking at identifying different styles of writing and writer's voice. By the end of this session, you must identify different writing styles, identify the difference in the level of seriousness and formality in journalistic styles. You should be able to identify different tones in text and be aware of opposite tones such as serious and fun. And you could understand what writer's voice is. So when you do your test, you will need to identify and discuss the tone and style of various texts. So you need to have an all-round knowledge of understanding those different text types. So this part of the functional skills is looking more at specific areas. Sorry, my printer, it's a bit noisy. Just wait for that to stop. Just read what's on the screen for a moment. Sorry about that. I'm not even printing. My printer just decided to clean itself or something, just really noisily. Okay, so the style. All texts have a style, which is usually determined by the audience that the writer has in mind when they are writing the text, or it could be the purpose of the text. Why do they need to write it? And we've got a list there of those different styles, which we've looked at. We have looked at them previously. So factual, academic, official, instructional, journalistic, and fictional. So some examples or some information about the different text types. We'll go through them, and then I do have some examples of some of them to show you. So factual text, factual writing, we see this all the time, newspapers, magazines, it could be a website. If you're studying, you will see it in your textbooks, whether they could be online textbooks or you know, actual textbooks, but they'll feature the factual writing. And this is usually formal. And we have looked quite a lot at this in writing and in reading, those long complex sentences. Excuse me. There'll be statistics and evidence, so numbers, if there's percentages or ranges or even tables showing different numbers or graphs, then it's a good indication of a factual text. So there'll be a clear layout, possibly some subheadings, so that you can find information easily. And footnotes, quotations, other references. So it will refer to other factual texts. So it might be other things that have been written about this subject. So it's using evidence, and it might have quotations from different people. Diagrams and charts. So again, like with statistics and evidence, they're a good indication, those representations of numbers or graphs, that's a good indication of a factual text because it's showing you data. And they'll be, just as it says, that be well organised. So again, it will have an introduction to what the text is about and then have a balanced argument, and will summarise its main points in a conclusion. So bringing all the arguments together and then making a summary. So there is a lot of crossover between the different text types, and some of them might fit into more than one category as well. So academic texts are a factual text, but it's a specific type, and so there'll be similar styles because they'll include some of those features. So, but with an academic text, it's going to be even more detailed and precise. So a magazine article about a forthcoming general election will have detail, it will have quotations in and maybe some evidence about some diagrams about voting behaviour. But an academic text from, I don't know, a politics professor about a forthcoming general election will have even more detail, you can imagine. So maybe including academic studies about voting behaviour and so on. So that would just be the difference between them. So an academic text as well, there won't be omissions or errors. It will be clearly researched in depth, and there'll be a lot of examination in the text of the subject matter. There'll be a clear and logical plan for the text, so it will be laid out clearly and logically. And because its purpose is to educate, it's not to entertain, so it might be dry, it won't be entertaining. So if we use the example of what I've just said about possibly a forthcoming general election, a magazine article about that, for instance, might focus on maybe how young people are going to vote in the general election. They might put some examples in and of people's individual stories, and it be quite human interest, what people's personal situations are that might be influencing voting behaviour, for example. But an academic text would be general, it wouldn't have that personal information, so it would be to educate rather than entertain. So it might be a bit more hard going to read. So it may offer other sources on the subject written about to add further balance. So it might refer you to additional text that you could go off and read to get further information. And there'll be technical or specific vocabulary for the subject matter. So official texts. So we've got some examples given there: letters, business proposals, press releases, So if you'd had a medical procedure, you might get a letter including, which would be an official text, and it might include some of these features. So formal language, if it's a letter addressed to Dear Mrs. Smith, polite language, possibly. So again, if it was a medical letter, specific, technical, so medical in that case, vocabulary. So here it's given an example of a legal document. There might be extreme detail. So if you're buying a house, for example, and you have the legal documents sent to you, there will be a lot of detail in there. And again, this quite often applies to legal documents, archaic, really old-fashioned language that you might see. You might have to go and look up. And neutral, impersonal language as well. So instructional texts, again, we've looked at this previously. A common example given would be a recipe is an instructional text. It could also be instructions to build some furniture. You bought a wardrobe or some drawers and you need to build them at home. You might have instructions. Could be a game that you're going to play. You need to have the instructions so you can learn how to play it. And in these type of texts, you'll have those imperatives, those command verbs. Do this, mix the ingredients, put the pieces on the board, get your drill. So those imperative or command verbs are a real indication they're a big feature of that type of text. So technical vocabulary. So one of the examples we looked at in a previous session was some instructions for, I think for building something, maybe some furniture or something with wood. And there was technical vocabulary, which a joiner would clearly understand, but perhaps wouldn't be so clear to someone just picking that up that had no experience of that subject. And again, often there'll be diagrams or so in instructions for building something, there'll often be a diagram. But if it was something like a recipe, you'll often have a feature such as illustrations, photographs, and so on. There may be some advisory language. So going back to a recipe, there might be different options of things that you could add. Some salt, you could add some chili. So sometimes, as well as those imperatives, you might have some options as well. And precise language. So to achieve the desired outcome of these instructions, the language needs to be precise so that someone can follow them. So journalistic text, so magazines, newspapers, news websites, and there's various styles depending on the seriousness of the writer and also depending on the audience and what the writer is trying to achieve. So two main styles that traditionally would be looked at would be serious or broadsheet journalism and opinion and tabloid journalism. So the broadsheets, newspapers like the Financial Times, the New York Times, the Guardian, the Telegraph, tabloid journalism, the Sun, the Express, the Mirror, the Daily Mail. They are tabloid, and the broadsheets traditionally were they folded in half, so they were double the size of a tabloid, and that's why they're known as broadsheets. But I think most of them are smaller now. If you actually pick up a physical copy, often people don't buy a copy anymore, they would read it online, but that's the reason for the terminology. So a serious journalistic text there'd be a logical approach to the subject. So again, a journalistic text would be a type of factual text that we've already looked at. So there's that overlap. So there'd be that logical approach of how the text is planned, how it's set out, and how, you know, how it follows as you read it. Generally, it'd be more serious. The subject matter itself is usually more serious. The opinions, although it might give an opinion one way or the other, they would generally still share both sides of the argument as well as giving their own opinion. So it'd be more balanced, more thoughtful. And there'd be a greater amount of text. So you do have photographs in a more serious newspaper, but there'd be fewer, and they would probably take up less space on the page as well. And so therefore it's less eye-catching. So on a newspaper stand, if you go into a newsagent, the broadsheet newspapers would be less eye-catching. The more black and white or pink and white with the pink and black with the Financial Times, there'd be more text rather than pictures jumping out at you and engaging you. But if we look at the opposite, or the other side of that, tabloid journalism, it's more emotive. It wants to draw people in to be either outraged at something that's happened, or to share the joy of, for example, a celebrity getting married, or a member of the royal family having a baby. So it's more emotive. There's a range of subject matter, serious to the bizarre and outlandish, all sorts of news matter reported. And opinions can be mild, simple reporting of an event, to extreme. And we did speak about that last week. One of you was talking about the Sun newspaper, and about how, there's often stories about so-called foreigners, and using that terminology, there can be quite extreme views. As we are probably getting towards a general election in the UK next year, you will start to see that extremes from the broadsheets, how things are reported about politics, to tabloids. It'll be really obvious even from just the front page about the difference between them. So they'll often have an eye-catching headline which takes up an enormous amount of the page, with a really small amount of text on the front page, and possibly a picture that takes up half or a large amount of the page rather than text. So as it says, image is used to imply meaning. So a fictional text, stories, poems, novels, scripts, poetry, all sorts of fictional text. And the features, often flowery, imaginative language, so lots of description. They could spend a whole paragraph setting the scene, talking about what the setting of the story looks like. There'd be imaginary characters and situations, so it could be make-believe, fantasy, and so on. Something like poetry, which wouldn't follow the normal grammar, punctuation, and even layout rules. So it's that kind of artistic freedom with something like poetry. And sometimes they do have some quotes or research. If it was a historical novel or it was based on a real event, then possibly within that text they might quote something, but it would be it would be few and far between, and the majority of fictional text would not do that. And if it's if it's a novel, for example, or a play, a script, they'd be organised into chapters or acts of the play, and so on. So those features to look out for. So I've got examples of some of them to show you. So I'm going to share. So can you see that new share?
Yes, please.
Okay. Excellent. So this is an example of the different layout and style of text for a tabloid and a broadsheet newspaper, so that journalistic text. So as I said, if you look on the left at the tabloid, it's the Daily Mail there, the headline is taking up an enormous amount of the page. So eye-catching straight away, everyone can see what that's about. The text itself, there's not very much of it. It does continue inside, but generally it'd be shorter, a shorter report than you would find in a broadsheet. Although the picture is not related to that story, it's about something else. The photographs on the cover of a tabloid newspaper are generally very big because they want that effect, that eye-catching effect. So a broadsheet, there's more text itself. So you look at just the covers, the difference between them, the photographs are less prominent. Yes, there is a large photograph in the middle there, but there's a lot more text around it. And the size of the headline is significantly smaller than in the tabloid. Okay. So if you have any comments or any questions or anything at all, you can just unmute yourself and just call out, that's fine. So this is an example of an official text. So this could be something, so this is a press release, and can anyone tell me any features they can see there of an official text?
There is a heading.
Yeah, there's a heading.
And there is a date.
There's a date, yeah, good.
Where is being addressed from?
Pardon? And
where is being addressed?
Yes, good. So it tells us where it's come from. So the office of the Prime Minister. Okay, so we've got formal language. So the first paragraph, Prime Minister Andrew Holness has urged the government of the United Kingdom to move quickly and decisively and fairly deal with the plight of persons known as the Windrush generation. So we've also got those long complex sentence there, and also throughout the text, which are a feature of factual writing, but also that's something you will see in an official text. Okay, we've got excuse me, we've got dates, as you mentioned. So the dates show us as well. That's an official text. Any other comments? Okay, so we've got one more example. So can anyone tell us what type of text this is?
No, okay, because I find it difficult to enter, so I couldn't catch up so much.
Okay, we're just
Yeah.
looking at some different types of texts.
Yeah.
Excuse me. So we've just gone through the features of different types of text. Can anyone recognise what type of text this would be? So we looked at factual, academic, official, instructional, journalistic, and fictional. So what do you think? What type of text is this? So we've already looked at journalistic and official, so it's not those. What do you think? What's the purpose of this text? If you start to read it, what's its aim? What's it doing?
It's an entertainment.
Not entertainment.
The subject of the game is to make it to the end without being spent in your room. Okay. Is it fictional?
No, it's not fictional or entertainment. So it's telling you the object of a game. It's telling you what equipment you need, preparation, how to play. So it's instructional. So it's giving you instructions of how to play the game of Monopoly.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I've told you, can you recognise that? So we've got the object of the game. So what are you trying to achieve? Equipment. So an example we have looked at a few times was a recipe. So in a recipe, it might tell you the equipment you need, you know, a mixer, a wooden spoon, a bowl, so on. The equipment here, it's telling you a board, dice, cards, okay, and preparation. It is written in a bit of a funny way, but it is instructional. Okay, so it's just giving you instructions for how to play the game. So there was just some examples there of the different text types. So let's go back. Okay, so if you read the text in black at the top next to quiz, and then tell me what type of writing style this is. So if you just read through it and then you can just call out what you think it is.
It's the academic.
Good, it's academic. What did you spot in there that helped you decide it was academic? What features?
It was this about the writer.
Yes, so there's information, yeah.
And it's describing a medical literature that he wrote.
Good. So it gives it's got footnotes, hasn't it? It's got those numbers.
Yeah.
That if you were looking at the whole text, it would tell you where that information came from. Good, about that book, so that you could, if you wanted to, you could go and get further information, or at the very least, you would know where that information came from. Good. Any other comments about that? Okay, let's look. Oh, sorry. Let's look at the next one. So again, if you read the text in black at the top and then tell us what style of writing it is. So does anyone want to have a go? The wind blew gently through her hair as she stood on the desolate riverbank. So journalistic, instructional, fictional, academic. What do you think?
C.
Good, fictional. Can anyone tell us how we know it is fictional?
It's more like a novel writing
Good,
because it's describing in in a romantic way.
good,
Says
good.
the wind blew gently.
Yes, good. The
Yeah.
desolate riverbank. So if you were reading a news report about something that happened on the riverbank and there was a woman stood there, the news report would say it differently, wouldn't it? It would say the woman stood on the rain. It might say the rain soaked. It might give an indication of something like the grassy riverbank, but it wouldn't use this emotional descriptive language. If you're reading a newspaper and it suddenly wrote about a witness to an event standing on the desolate riverbank, then you'd find it a bit strange. It wouldn't fit in within that text type, would it? So can you see the difference between that fictional writing and how something similar could be written in a news report? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. Is anyone unsure about that, or is that okay? Please let me know if you need more, if we need to spend more time on it. Okay. Oh.
Yes, I don't get it very
Okay.
how it is romantic and
so
how,
so we've got this sentence here. The wind blew gently through her hair. So if you were reading a news report, so I don't know, I'm trying to think of something that might happen on a riverbank. So somebody's fallen into the river, and a news report might say, the man fell into the river at midnight. A woman stood on the riverbank watching the rescue. Okay. But they wouldn't add in a description of the woman's hair blowing in the wind. So that's more, that additional description is a feature of fictional text. So the wind blowing gently through her hair, you wouldn't see that in a news report. Does that make sense? So if you were reading a news report, you would just have the facts. A woman stood on the riverbank. That's it. But when it's fictional, if you are reading a novel, then you want that added description for interest, so that you can imagine what the woman looks like, what's happening in the surrounding area, the desolate riverbank. So that, again, that additional description there, desolate.
Okay.
So that is a feature using that descriptive language. So desolate, do you know what that word means? The definition of that word, because it's you might find it in, so it's bleak. Okay, it's bleak, it's barren, it's lonely. So there, it's quite an emotional word to use. So in a factual, in a journalistic text, for example, they wouldn't use that. You might do sometimes, but it would be unlikely that you would see such an emotional description. Okay. So the best way for you to be able to identify those differences is to read lots of different text types. You don't have to read them in great detail, but look at a variety of magazines, of books. You can go to the library for free and just look at magazines, at daily newspapers, and at every type of text that we have looked at will be available in your local library. They have fiction, non-fiction, they'll have daily newspapers and magazines that you can look at while you're there. So you can, just looking at those different text types, you don't have to read every single article in detail, but just look at the features, try and spot them, read a few paragraphs. You can also access a lot of these different text types on, and probably all of them actually, online, so you can compare them that way. Okay.
Thank you.
So let's look. Hold on, won't let me change the slide. Give me a minute. Okay, so another text type. The property aforementioned will remain the property of the leaseholder ad infinitum unless there is a change in property law. So which text type do you think that could be? Oh, could you just mute? Could everybody mute themselves, please? Unless you're sharing an answer. Right, I'm going to mute everybody because the person who's talking, I don't think realises.
I think it's an instructional.
Sorry, just.
I think it's this, an official.
Sorry, I've just muted everyone because we had some background noise. So if you want to speak, you just unmute yourself.
Me, I think it's A.
Which one, sorry?
I think it's A.
A. So,
I myself
journalistic would be so like a report about something that's happened. So imagine a newspaper or a magazine. So here we've got the property aforementioned. So we've got that, the type of vocabulary we've got there. It's very formal, isn't it? The will remain the property of the leaseholder ad infinitum. So ad infinitum isn't English, is it? That's Latin. So it's very archaic. It's you know, it's using Latin. It's archaic language. So what type of text did we look at that might feature possible archaic language such as Latin, formal language? It's neutral.
I think it's an official.
Good. So it's
it's
about,
official. Yeah, official.
It is. It's official. So it's about property, isn't it? So it's some kind of legal document. This has been taken from about property. So the property aforementioned. Nobody speaks like that. Okay, that's really official, formal language. Ad infinitum, so that use of Latin, that's a massive big clue to us that it is official. Okay, and it also mentions property law, so again we've got another clue there. Good. Sorry, just go. So after attaching the twine to the half-formed mannequin, glue the lower side of the torso to it. So look at the features and then which one is it? Journalistic, instructional, fictional or official?
Can I have a go?
Yeah, of course you can.
Yeah, it's an instructional.
Good. It's instruction. How did you know? What gave you a clue that it was instructional?
It's giving you an instruction of how to attach the twine, and it's giving you the step-by-step of what to do.
It is, and we've got that command verb, that imperative, glue. So it doesn't say you might want to go and glue. It says glue. Go and do it right away. Glue the lower side of the torso to it. Good, well done. Okay, so tone. So tone is less about what you say and more about how you say it. So, for example, two different news stories or journalistic texts could report about the same event, but their tone could be very different. And we've got some examples of tone types here: sarcastic, polite, optimistic, fun, pessimistic, serious, erratic, consistent, genius. Okay, so it asks us which ones are opposites of each other. So if you want to just have a look at those and have a think for a moment or two about which ones are opposites. And then we'll have a look at it together.
Wow, knife.
Polite.
So just take a moment for everyone to have a look, and then I'll ask people to tell me what they think. Okay, if you want to share any ideas with us, you can unmute yourself.
I think sarcastic
Yep.
and optimistic. Optimistic.
So, right.
We have to be optimistic, yeah.
So optimistic, it's the opposite would not be sarcastic as such. There's another word there that's very much like optimistic, which means negative. So, and everyone might not be aware of that word. So optimistic and pessimistic. So optimistic, looking on the good side of things, being positive. Pessimistic is the opposite of that, looking on the bad side, being very negative. So they are opposites. So if we look at sarcastic, so if you're very sarcastic in your writing, it's making, so if we're being sarcastic about a person, that's quite rude, isn't it? You're making fun of them. So what would be the opposite of that?
Consistent.
Not consistent. That, so if we imagine sarcastic meaning rude.
Rude, okay, yeah.
What would be the opposite of rude from that list?
Erratic.
It's polite.
Polite, that's right. So if you're being polite, you're not being rude, are you? That's the opposite. So how about fun? What would be the opposite of fun?
Serious.
Good. So we've got serious. And we've got erratic, consistent, and genius left. So which two of those words are opposites? So erratic means that it's all over the place. There's no structure to the text. Sharing, you know, the ideas, they've not thought it through at all. Consistent would mean, well, it's well ordered. The argument follows through as you read the text. And genius obviously means someone's extremely clever, or it's an extremely clever, intelligent idea. So which two of those three words are opposites of each other?
Genius.
So
Erratic and consistent is opposite each other.
good. Yeah. So erratic and consistent. Okay, so consistent, it's well thought through. The argument that the text is making, that the writer's making throughout the text, follows structure, you know, it follows through. Erratic would be the opposite. It's all over the place. It doesn't even make sense because it's all over the place. So that would be the opposite. And then we've just got that one word left, genius. Okay. Sorry, just need to. So. So we've got two sentences or short paragraphs here. One is optimistic, so it's positive, and the other one is pessimistic, so it's negative. So the first sentence is, by the end of the concert, the crowd were ecstatic. I left feeling that I'd fallen in love with music all over again. Managerless, rudderless, hopeless. This football team haven't got a hope of avoiding relegation. So which one is optimistic or positive, and which one is pessimistic or negative?
The first one, optimistic.
Good. Okay. So the first sentence or short paragraph is positive language. We've got emotive language, ecstatic, fallen in love with music. It's upbeat. Well done, which means the bottom one is pessimistic. They've got that exaggeration, but they're all negative words. And they haven't got a hope, and they haven't put any positives in at all. So polite or rude. So I'll read these sentences out, and I want you to tell me which one's polite and which one is rude. If everybody washed their dishes, we wouldn't have this stinking mess. And the second one, if all members could kindly leave via the back door, we would be very grateful.
The first sentence is rude.
Good. And why is it rude? We've got some an answer there for us. Direct language. If everybody washed their dishes, we wouldn't have this stinking mess. We've got something underlined, capitalized, strong adjective. It's stinking. Okay, so it's very rude.
And it's
the polite sentence there. It's requestful, so it's not demanding something happens, it's making a request. If they could kindly leave. Kindly, grateful, so it's well-mannered, polite vocabulary. It's not directed at anyone particular. Okay. So genuine or sarcastic. So which one is which is a genuine tone and which has a sarcastic tone? So well done to all those bridge builders who wanted peace in the country. We know, sorry, that should be now. We now have an even worse situation. Fantastic. And number 2, one day, all children in this nation will have the opportunity to attain an excellent education. So which one's sarcastic, or we can also say it's quite rude, because sarcasm is usually quite rude.
The first one is sarcastic.
Good. So the first one, and the features there, we've got speech marks around bridge builders, so implying that they didn't really build any bridges for peace. Well done. So it's, if you think about the tone of it, it's if someone was saying it out loud, not they're going to be saying well done, you know, it's very negative. They're not being genuine with that fantastic at the end. So this one is genuine, it's inspiring, idealistic, it's got a positive tone to it. So which one's serious in tone and which has a fun tone? She's been in the Big Brother house for 2 weeks. She'll paint the town red when she gets out. By extracting the DNA using hitherto unused techniques, the scientists can speed up their current process. So which one's serious, which one is fun?
The first sentence is fun.
Good. And it's trivial subject matter, so it's not a serious topic. It's about people in the Big Brother house from the TV show. Simple language, so we've not got a complex sentence there. We've got the exclamation mark at the end. And the other one about the DNA, it's a long complex sentence, formal language, hitherto. We've got that subordinate clause there, and technical language, extracting the DNA, the techniques that are used. So erratic or consistent. All my life, I have been a supporter of the Independent Democrats. You should be too. I first came across their policies in 1986 when I read their excellent manifesto for the local elections of that year. The opposition leader was an idiot, so it was a no-brainer. That first election was brilliant. They secured an unprecedented 11% of the vote and won councils in Surrey, Glamorganshire and Teesside. Couldn't win a single seat, said some. My eye, it's a shame they folded in 1991 without a trace. So is this text erratic or consistent? So for this one, sorry, I should have said, for this one, we're looking at the whole text. So is this text erratic or consistent?
Excuse me, miss. Could you explain the word consistent, if you don't mind, please?
Yes, so if the text was consistent, it would be following the argument or the topic throughout the text. Excuse me, I've just got a cough. Okay, so there'd be accuracy to it. The arguments given would be followed through. They would be the same arguments really, although they might be expressed differently. It would be following through the same argument from the start to the finish. So this is somebody's personal opinion, all my life, I. So somebody's writing this about themselves. Is their opinion the same throughout? Are they giving the same supportive arguments, or is it a bit all over the place? That would be erratic. So it's not really, is the tone the same? Is it serious all the way through, which would be consistent, or does it go from serious to sarcastic or rude? and so on.
Thanks.
So what do you think? Does this seem consistent, or does
Okay.
it seem more erratic?
I think erratic.
It looks
Good.
more.
So let's just, I'm just going to delete all of these boxes so we can see. So it begins with a fun personal style. Okay, so and it has got a formal sentence then. I first came across their policies in 1986 when I read their excellent manifesto. So that's quite formal in tone. But then we've got the opposition leader was an idiot. It was a no-brainer, that more informal language, and it's quite rude. So we've got that mixture of styles all in the first paragraph. So that's not showing consistency. The first election was brill. So again, we've now got that informal style. But then we've got some information about the numbers, the percentage of the vote, which is more formal and academic in style. But rather than keeping to that style, they're then using sarcasm. So couldn't win a single seat, my eye, okay. And then it's just got one sentence ending, there's no summarising, and it doesn't really give any explanation about why they folded without a trace in 1991. And also it's a new piece of information, which isn't really how we summarise. We should be summing up the information we've already given. So it's very erratic. Okay, the style is all over the place. It's got lots of different styles in one short piece of text. So it's erratic. Okay. So writer's voice is their unique personal way of writing. So it's often seen as style plus tone plus attitude. And the attitude will be illustrated by a writer's beliefs and values, and is often the emotional part of their writing. It's a combination of everything in someone's writing to indicate who they are. So for me, a good example would be if you like fiction. So I personally am a big reader. I love to read fiction, and I often I might develop a fondness or I like a particular author, and often an author, they're different novels. You can tell the style is the same author. Okay, so I like lots of different types of novels, but if I'm just thinking of somebody like Joe Nesbo, who writes thrillers, he would have a certain style of writing. Okay, and it's not necessarily something specific, but you can feel, you can hear through their writer's voice their beliefs and values and their emotions writing it. It would also apply to non-fiction, the different types of text as well, but it would be more obvious in fiction. Also, if you're looking at something like poetry, there might be a certain style and tone that is seen with the same author. Okay. So, does anyone have any questions or comments about today's session? If you want some more practice, which you should be doing really to prepare for your assessment, Oh, let me just, can you see that I've just changed the screen or not?
Yeah.
No, right.
Yes.
Okay.
You can see it.
So,
Yes, it's changed.
okay. So if you go on, log into Moodle, and if you have problems logging in, if you contact somebody in the office, they should be able to help you with this. And when you log in, you will have questions and answers for today's session. And it's a good idea to practice those, to go over that. First of all, just look at the questions, have a go, and then look at the answers to see if you've got them correct, and also to help you with any that you weren't sure about. Another thing you should be doing is, so today we've looked at all those different text types. As I've said, you can look online when you've got a spare 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or set aside half an hour if you can, just to look online at those different text types. Look for the features that we've talked about. If you have children that go to the library while they're looking for books, have a look at different text types in the adult sections. Or even if you do have time, and I know we're all very busy, you might not have time, but if you do want to, you can look at everything for free in the library. And as I said, they've got all the different text types, magazines, academic, they've got novels, poetry. So if you did have some time one day, that is something you could do. But as I've said, you can get them online as well. But comparing them and looking for those features that we have talked about is the best way that you can practice and get better at recognising those features. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you for your contributions today, everybody.
Thank you.
I'll hopefully speak to you tomorrow. Okay. Have a good day, everybody.
Same to you. Thank you.
You too. Bye.
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 Bye.